And now, Miami by Jack Kofoed, where beneath America's brightest sun and bluest sky, forbidden attractions vie with more innocent pleasures to lure the vacationist's lucre. In the days before the great boom, Miami's dream of fame as a winter resort did not include the revelry and wickedness of the Riviera. Drowsing under the winter sun, the small but growing city looking over Biscayne Bay to the sandy wasteland that the magic of Carl Fisher later transformed into Miami Beach, took thought principally to sound and careful citizens. The businessman of the rural Middle West, with his Rotary, Kiwanis, and Board of Trade affiliations, was the type that Miami hoped would build her skyline and increase her bank deposits. This hope was deepened by the mob of tin can tourists, rainbow chasers, and easy money boys who surged down there in 1925 to grab what they could and leave Miami flat on her protesting back. Floridians wanted stability in a day when nothing had a really solid foundation, so they settled on the businessman as an ideal. Later, however, the city came to realize that Congress gaiters and ankle-length skirts never built a winter resort. The free spenders are the background of any gay place, and the free spenders like liquor, horses, slim legs, and pretty faces, gambling, and similar amusements. You can't lure them with strawberry festivals and Sunday school picnics. Miami continued to pretend that it was wrapped in civic righteousness. This was natural, considering that William J. Bryan spread his beneficent personality over it for so many years. But in fact, and pretense aside, the Magic City has torn itself away from the staid old dream. Small-town businessmen and retired schoolma'ams may still find harbor there, but the real atmosphere has been tinted by the Texas Guinans, Jack Dempseys, Scarface Capones, and by a motley crew from Broadway and the racetrack. The average visitor is much more likely to ask the location of a famous gambling joint, popularly supposed to have been backed by the late Tex Rickard, than of the First Methodist Church. I like Miami. It is an absolutely perfect place for a vacation. The sky is bluer and the sunshine brighter than anywhere else in America. Of the more innocent pleasures, golf, bathing, polo tennis, speedboating, airplaning, there is no end. Of the more sophisticated joys, such as drinking, gambling, and eating pompano at Little Joe's, there is equal abundance. Miami admits these assets privately, but denies them publicly. Hypocrisy is increasing on the shores of Biscayne Bay. Get the dollars, but deny the reasons for them. The city is touchy in the extreme about any fling at her standing. 2 years ago, a young Baltimore businessman opened a novelty store down there. His rent was $300 a month and business dragged. Finally, he decided to sell out his stock and go home. In the usual manner, he placarded the front of his place with signs advertising the unusual bargains to be found within. He added one, for his mood was jocular, though slightly tinged with bitterness, that read, "Selling out, going back north, where men are men and rents are reasonable." It was as though a drunken sergeant had spit in the face of the chief of staff. There was an instant hullabaloo. The Chamber of Commerce fairly frothed at the mouth. The offender was arrested and brought into court. The judge pondered. There was, he admitted, no ordinance covering such an offense. But there was an insistent demand for punishment. So the judge concluded sagely that the sign constituted disorderly conduct and sent its author to jail for 10 days. This was a lesson to other smart alecks who might be in the mood for casting slurs at the beautiful stronghold of the Bryan and Flagler worshippers. My quarrel with Miami is not for the things she does or permits to be done within her borders, but for pretending that those things do not exist. One finds no inhibitions there except among the holy, who pretend that the place is full of beneficial restrictions. Revenue cutters go dashing along the coast up and down Biscayne Bay without stemming to any appreciable degree the amount of liquor to be found in the city. Champagne, rye, Scotch gin, Bacardi, really excellent beer manufactured in Newark, they tell me, and dolled up with beautiful German labels, are procurable at prices that seem ridiculously modest compared with those on Broadway. Would you gamble? The magnificent racing plant at Hialeah is predicated on the bookmaker, of course, since the state frowns on mutual machines and thereby gets no cut on the vast sums won and lost. Improving the thoroughbred is impossible without betting on the relative speed of the horses. Eliminate wagering, and the number of spectators would be negligible. There are scores of gambling houses, both in Miami and on the beach. Roulette, craps, poker, anything you choose. In some places, there is no limit, but the spender and piker can find places to throw away their money. And the slot machine, it has found its haven here. Nearly everywhere else it is barred, even in Chicago, where it flourished for so many years. Miami literally boasts thousands of them. At one hotel, I have seen 2 machines going full blast in the lobby. One gobbled dimes, the other quarters. Optimists gather in front of these machines at all hours of the day and night. A well-known pugilist lost $118 there one afternoon. His trainer, a thin, dark Italian with an incurable passion for gambling, must have dropped 5 times as much in the course of his stay. Everyone played, and each night a collector came and emptied the choked maw of silver. The take is counted in the presence of the proprietor, for the profits are split equally between the owners of the machines and the hotels. Under the circumstances, it is not considered necessary to trust anyone. The business is an expensive one to start. The machines cost $175 each, for they are deftly and delicately constructed. I was told that if you are right with sheriffs in cities where machines have been confiscated, they are available at bargain rates. Put 1 or 2 in every cigar store and in the lobbies of all the smaller hotels, and obviously the initial cost is a heavy one. But the play is really tremendous, and with a shade better than 4-to-1 odds against the player, it can be seen that the owners need not worry about their profits. Whippet racing was introduced at Miami several years ago and became enormously popular. Pretty tracks with stucco grandstands and tastefully furnished clubhouses were built. The mutual method of gambling was introduced because it has the obvious advantage of permitting the operating company to make all the money on the betting instead of giving that golden privilege to be split up among shifty-eyed bookmakers. Mutual betting is not permitted under Florida laws one whit more than bookmaking. However, to one accustomed to seeing officers of the law standing beside gamblers actively plying their trade at Belmont, Saratoga, and other New York tracks, and at Hialeah too, let it not be forgotten, it was no surprise to see open gambling at the dog tracks. In deference to the law, the plan was prettied up. You do not go to a window and bet $2. You go to a window and buy a share of stock in a certain dog corporation called, say, Brian's Delight. If a dog called Brian's Delight should win a race, you are not crudely informed that the win, place, and show money are such and such. Oh no, Brian's Delight, having had a successful couple of minutes, now proceeds to pay a dividend of perhaps 200 or 300% upon your investment. Even this concession did not meet with entire approval. Several times the tracks were closed, but when the crowds began drifting in for the sharky, stribbling fight, business had its way. The tracks were opened, and the visiting firemen were permitted to bet all they chose. The nightclub has become an established institution, with cover charges to make a real spender blink. Several years ago, Evelyn Nesbitt ran one near the racetrack. There were 2, Texas Guinan's Silver Slipper, the 60 Club, Hardy's Casino, and others that offered excuse for occasional raids by Sheriff Henry Chase. Just what good those raids did, I haven't been able to learn, unless they demonstrated the sheriff's independence of a police force that, according to a grand jury report, was cutting in on the profits of all the bootleggers, gamblers, prostitutes, and hijackers in Miami. The growth of Miami is one of the real romances of American business. Across Biscayne Bay was a key of mangrove swamps flanked by sand dunes. Carl Fisher bought it. Within a few years, it was dotted with beautiful homes, hotels, country clubs, polo fields, and all the other requirements of a fashionable resort. The flattening out of the boom ruined thousands of people. In June 1926, more than 15,000 parcels of land were sold for taxes. The West Indian hurricanes that raped the coast added death and physical destruction to the financial wreckage. But Miami has gone ahead because it has all the conditions to make it the winter capital of American wealth. Those include, beyond any shadow of doubt, the fact that pleasures that do not come within the pale are so readily obtainable. Hence it is that Havana has become the bête noire of Miami. The Cuban capital is only 3 hours away by plane and offers freedom to do as you please comparable to the Riviera's. If Miami retains the best features of the sin-cursed Cuban capital, the dollars that might fly across the straits will stay where they will do the most good. In a city like this, the opportunities for graft by policemen have been enormous. The guardians of public safety became bolder and rougher until a grand jury indicted the lot. Alexander Orr Jr., a prominent businessman who was foreman of the jury, and V. Vernon Hawthorne State's attorney issued the following statement. Approximately 300 witnesses have appeared before the grand jury, more than 90% of whom gave testimony regarding police conditions, in consequence of which we became convinced that there existed within the police department a well-constructed organization of unknown strength, slowly but surely destroying the freedom of our citizens, meaningless and cruel, practicing habits destitute of moral or civil motives, and serving only to gratify a malignant passion. We feel that the lack of morals and their alliance with gamblers, bootleggers, houses of ill fame, and the underworld in general have contributed largely to the amazing growth of open violations of the law in the territory served by them. We frankly and fearlessly assume the responsibility of placing the facts before you with the hope that justice, kindliness, and mercy shall emerge triumphantly out of this welter of confusion, cruelty, and oppression. But what would you? The prosperity of Miami is greatly dependent on the ease with which certain laws can be broken. The non-observance of those laws means not only legitimate profit for the businessman and hotel keeper, but a bigger and less legitimate one for a hard-boiled gentry. Miami is a charming place for a frolic. So, in a different way, is New York. The undercover conditions are probably much the same in both places. But New York does not pretend morality.